Good morning, everyone. Today's project is dehydrating apples. I have this 3-pound bag of apples that I want to preserve before they start, going bad. They're pretty fresh right now, so it's a good time to preserve them. And so that's what I'll be working on today. This is Rebecca from Simple Suburban Living. Okay, so the process that I'm going to do is I'm going to peel them, core them, and I'm going to cut them into large dices. And a lot of times, if I was just going to use them for snacking, I would probably slice them, but we're going to be using them on granola. And so I want them in small pieces. Okay, so before I start to peel and core and cut them up, I want to get some water ready. I have 5 cups of water here, and I'm going to add to the 5 cups of water 1/3 of a cup of lemon juice. Okay, and as I cut the apples, I'm just going to put them into the lemon juice, and this mixture will help prevent browning both prior to the dehydrating and hopefully during the dehydrating process as well. So I'm going to just let you watch the process, but of course I'll speed everything up for you. I started off by, of course, washing all of the apples. Now it's time to get started with peeling and slicing them. Another thing is you should make sure to cut off any bad spots like that. And by the way, all of these scraps are going to go into my compost pile, so none of it will be wasted. completed peeling and coring and cutting up all of the apples. You can see that from 3 pounds of apples, I ended up with about 8 cups of apples. So now I'm going to put the apples on the dehydrator trays, and I'm using these little plastic screens. You have to excuse, a couple of them are stained, but they are clean. I had dehydrated some chipotle peppers on them, and so that's why they're stained, but they're clean. So anyway, I have 4 of these trays with the screens, and so I am going to divide them more or less evenly among these trays. All right, and then I'm going to be dehydrating them at 135 degrees. Okay, the apples have now been dehydrating overnight, and when I checked them at 3 hours in, they were very soft and spongy, had a ton of moisture still. When I checked them at 6 hours in, they were definitely had progressed a lot, but still had a ways to go. So I went ahead and went to bed and left them drying overnight. And of course, when I got up this morning, they are done and they're nice and dehydrated, and I'm going to be putting them into jars. So let's take a look at that, and we'll see how they look, and also we'll find out how much they fill up. Now remember, before I dehydrated them, we had 8 cups of apples. Okay, so the only thing that I'm disappointed in is they did turn brown, even though I had soaked them prior to dehydrating. I had soaked them in a water and lemon juice solution. They turned brown anyway, but they taste really good, and like I said, I plan on putting them in our granola, so maybe just like a small handful like this each morning into the granola until they're gone, just for some added nutrition and added taste. Okay, so let's see what we ended up with. I've got a half-pint jar here, and this is my prediction that they'll fit in this half-pint jar. The 8 cups worth of apples will fit in here. We'll see if that's correct or not. Oh, by the way, I should mention that before I start putting them in the jar, I did turn this dehydrator off this morning and went and had a cup of coffee and them come to room temperature. Now, you don't need to let them sit for a long time, and in fact, you don't want them to sit for a long time, especially if you live in a humid environment, because then the humidity where you are can end up going back into the dehydrated fruit or whatever it is you're dehydrating, and that's not good. But you also don't want to put them into the jars warm, so I let them cool just for a few minutes, come to room temperature, so that there wouldn't be any condensation from them putting the warm apples into the jar. Okay? By the way, I recommend doing this if you see apples on sale. You know, they tend to come on sale different times of the year. Or if you buy a large number of apples at a place like Costco or something. You have a big bag, can buy a big bag of apples really cheap, and there's no way you can eat them. Well, most likely no way that you can eat them before they go bad. So you can dehydrate some, and you can also, if you want, you can also can some, maybe make applesauce or something like that. And I have a video on that as well. So if you get a ton of apples, you can use some, dehydrate some, and you can also can some. And then that's just a different way to enjoy the apples. And naturally, you can eat some of them fresh as well. Okay, I actually think that I'm not going to quite fit them all into this one jar, so let me get this second jar. You know, even though this is turning out to be more, take up more space than I thought, still it's pretty incredible. And one of the things that I love about dehydrating is how you can store more food in less space. So those of us who are trying to build a prepper pantry and don't necessarily have a ton of space, and that's true for me, a ton of space to store food, it's really nice to be able to store more food in less space. So let's look at what we came up with, what we ended up with. So I'm going to call that roughly slightly more than 3 cups of apples dehydrated. And I remember I started off with 8 cups, and so that shrunk it down significantly, and I'm very pleased with that. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed this video. I would love it if you would like the video and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear your experience on dehydrating apples. Did you do it the same way as me? Did you do it differently? What has your experience been? Or if you haven't done it, do you think that you'll give this a try? Also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up. And if you would also subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified each time I put out new content. Thanks so much and have a great day.